The Galactic Council chamber was a monument to interstellar diplomacy, with its towering ceilings, holographic displays of distant galaxies, and representatives from 100 different species seated in concentric tiers. For centuries, it had been the center of authority, deciding the fate of entire worlds. Humanity, a relatively new addition to the Council, was often overlooked, its contributions dismissed as insignificant by more advanced species. Today was no different. The Terran delegation's concerns about military incursions on their outer colonies are noted, the Council speaker said, his tone dripping with thinly veiled indifference. His shimmering, scaled visage reflected the chamber's ambient light as he moved on without pause. Now, let us turn to more pressing matters. Ambassador Elaine Carter clenched her fists under the table but kept her expression composed. The plight of the human colonies was not pressing enough for the Council's attention. Reports of coalition-backed raids on humanity's fringe settlements had been escalating, yet no action was taken. We have reports of civilian casualties, she interrupted, her voice steady but firm. Heads turned toward her, some in surprise, others in annoyance. Entire communities wiped out. Humanity demands an investigation and immediate cessation of these incursions. The chamber erupted into murmurs, but one voice cut through the noise. It belonged to Admiral Zelther of the Zirash Empire, a warlike species whose reputation for military conquest was unparalleled. He stood, his towering form bristling with contempt. Humanity demands? Zelther sneered, his mandibles clicking in disdain. Your kind cowers behind Council laws, hiding from the realities of galactic warfare. War is not in your nature. You speak of demands, yet you lack the spine to enforce them. Laughter rippled through the chamber, and Elaine felt a surge of frustration. Humanity's patience with the Council was wearing thin, but their voices were drowned in the arrogance of the more powerful species. You assume we fear war, Admiral, Elaine replied, her tone icy. Perhaps you mistake restraint for cowardice. Zelther laughed, a guttural sound that echoed in the chamber. Restraint? Your species wouldn't last a cycle against a real enemy. Your worlds would burn before you could muster the courage to fight back. The Council's laughter stung, but Elaine said nothing more. She simply gathered her documents and left, knowing words alone would not change the galaxy's perception of humanity. Later that day, in a secure room aboard the United Terran Embassy Station, Elaine met with General Adrian Kane, a decorated military leader who had seen firsthand the devastation wrought by the coalition-backed raids. They'll never listen, Elaine said, pacing the room. The Council won't act until it's too late. Humanity will be left to fend for itself. General Kane leaned back in his chair, his expression grim. Then we make them listen. The raids are getting worse, and the colonies can't hold out much longer. If the Council won't defend us, we'll show the galaxy we can defend ourselves. Elaine's brow furrowed. You're suggesting open conflict? I'm suggesting we prepare for the inevitable, Kane said. The coalition doesn't see us as a threat. Let's show them what happens when they underestimate humanity. It wasn't long before news arrived that the outermost Terran colony, Halcyon V, had been obliterated. Survivors spoke of coalition ships descending like locusts, razing cities and slaughtering civilians. The massacre was broadcast across human networks, igniting outrage and despair. On Earth, President Elena Moreno addressed the United Terran Federation with a fiery speech that resonated across every colony. For too long, humanity has sought peace through cooperation and diplomacy, even as our people suffered, she declared. But there comes a time when we must stand, not just for ourselves, but for the future of humanity. We did not choose this war, but we will finish it. The message was clear, humanity would no longer rely on the Galactic Council to defend them. It was time to take matters into their own hands. Preparations began immediately. Factories shifted to wartime production, turning out advanced weapons and ships at an unprecedented rate. Alliances were quietly forged with other disenfranchised species, races who had also suffered under the coalition's dominance. On the front lines, soldiers like Captain Marcus Hayes prepared for the fight ahead. Stationed on the military vessel Vanguard, He watched as the crew loaded supplies and tested the ship's systems. "Do you think we stand a chance?" one young officer asked, her voice betraying her nerves. Hayes nodded, his expression resolute. "We've faced extinction before. Every time, humanity's found a way to survive. This time won't be any different." As the fleet mobilized, humanity's resolve hardened. The Galactic Council continued to dismiss their efforts, convinced it was little more than a futile display of defiance. "They'll break before the first skirmish," Zelther declared in a private council meeting. "Humans are not warriors. They're dreamers, inventors, scavengers. War requires more than courage, it demands ruthlessness." But Zelther, and the rest of the council, had underestimated one critical element: humanity's capacity to adapt, to unite, and to defy all expectations when pushed to the brink. As the human fleet departed for its first engagement, the stars seemed to hold their breath. War was coming, and humanity was ready to show the galaxy that their fear had been misjudged, not as a weakness, but as a strength born of wisdom. The storm was about to break, and for the first time, the Galactic Council would see what humanity was truly capable of. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace on the edge of Coalition territory, a vast expanse of space that glittered with distant stars and the ominous silhouettes of enemy warships. The Coalition blockade was waiting, their sleek, angular vessels bristling with weapons and confidence. For centuries, they had relied on their technological superiority and sheer numbers to dominate the galaxy. On the bridge of the Vanguard, Captain Marcus Hayes stared at the tactical display, his jaw set. Red blips representing Coalition forces vastly outnumbered the blue icons of humanity's fleet. Yet the humans had something the Coalition didn't: desperation and ingenuity. "Captain," a tactical officer called out, "the Coalition is hailing us. They're demanding immediate surrender." Hayes scoffed, crossing his arms. "What's their exact message?" A holographic display lit up, projecting the words of a Coalition admiral. "Terran forces, you are surrounded. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Resistance is futile. Hayes turned to his crew, his voice calm but steely. "Resistance is futile? Let's show them just how wrong they are." The plan was already in motion. While the Coalition had prepared for a traditional engagement, humanity's fleet had no intention of playing by their rules. Hayes knew that brute force wouldn't win the day. They had to exploit the Coalition's arrogance and overconfidence. The Vanguard moved into position, flanked by smaller, faster ships designed for hit-and-run tactics. The Coalition's blockade adjusted to intercept, their formation tightening like a noose. "Launch the decoys," Hayes ordered. From the human ships, dozens of unmanned drones streaked into the void, emitting false energy signatures that mimicked full-size vessels. Coalition sensors lit up, and their ships adjusted course to engage what they thought was the main force. "Perfect," Hayes muttered. "They've taken the bait. All units, execute Phase 2. As the Coalition moved to intercept the decoys, humanity's fleet split into smaller groups, weeding through asteroid fields and debris-laden corridors of space. The smaller ships attacked from unexpected angles, striking at the Coalition's weaker flanks before retreating into cover. The Coalition admiral, watching from the bridge of his command ship, slammed a clawed hand on the console. "These Terrans fight like scavengers. Track their movements and engage." But humanity's tactics were anything but random. Each strike was coordinated, designed to draw the Coalition deeper into the asteroid field, where their larger, more cumbersome ships struggled to maneuver. On board the Vanguard, Hayes monitored the battle with sharp precision. His crew worked tirelessly, relaying updates and executing maneuvers with flawless efficiency. "Enemy forces are splitting," a lieutenant reported. "Their flagship is moving towards Sector Gamma." "That's what we've been waiting for," Hayes said. "Prepare the payload." The payload was a new weapon, one developed in secret by humanity's brightest engineers. A compact EMP device, it was designed to disrupt the Coalition's advanced systems without causing catastrophic damage. The goal wasn't destruction, it was humiliation. The Vanguard and its escort ships moved into position, luring the coalition flagship closer. The enemy ship loomed like a predator, its massive cannons glowing with energy as they prepared to fire. "Hold steady," Hayes said, his voice calm despite the tension in the air. "Let them think they've got us." The coalition flagship unleashed a volley of plasma bolts, the bright projectiles streaking through space toward the Vanguard. Hayes waited until the last possible moment before giving the order. "Evasive maneuvers. Deploy the EMP." The Vanguard rolled sharply to the side, dodging the plasma bolts by a hair's breadth. Simultaneously, a small drone carrying the EMP payload shot toward the coalition flagship, embedding itself in the ship's hull before detonating. A blinding burst of energy rippled through the coalition's formation. One by one, their ship's systems flickered and died, their engines stalling and weapons going dark. On board the flagship, alarms blared as the crew scrambled to regain control. Hayes seized the moment. "All units, advance. Disable their engines and weapons, leave them stranded." The human fleet surged forward, targeting the immobilized coalition ships with precision strikes. They didn't destroy their enemies outright, instead, they focused on disabling key systems, rendering the ships defenseless but intact. On the coalition flagship, the admiral roared in frustration, his claws raking across the console. "How is this possible? They're primitives. They shouldn't." His words were cut short as a human strike team breached the flagship's command deck. Led by Lieutenant Aria Voss, the team moved with ruthless efficiency, their armor deflecting enemy fire as they secured the area. Aria stepped forward, her rifle trained on the coalition admiral. "We're not primitives," she said, her voice cold and steady. "We're survivors. And we're just getting started." The battle ended with a decisive human victory. Coalition ships, once symbols of dominance, now floated helplessly in the void, their crews forced to watch as humanity's fleet regrouped and prepared for the next phase of the campaign. On the Vanguard, Hayes addressed his crew, his voice carrying the weight of their accomplishment. "We've sent a message today, not just to the coalition, but to the entire galaxy. Humanity doesn't fear war. We master it." The victory was a turning point. News of the battle spread like wildfire, igniting hope among oppressed species and colonies. For the first time, the galaxy saw humanity not as weaklings, but as a force capable of standing against the mighty coalition. But Hayes knew this was only the beginning. The coalition would retaliate, and the next battle would be even harder. Still, as he looked at his crew, their faces filled with determination, he felt a spark of hope. Humanity had taken the first step, and there was no turning back. The coalition's retaliation came faster and fiercer than humanity had anticipated. Within days of their stunning defeat, the coalition mobilized its elite fleets, amassing an armada of ships that dwarfed humanity's forces. These were the Apex divisions, veterans of countless conquests, led by the infamous Grand Admiral Kessler. Known for his ruthless tactics and unrelenting pursuit of victory, Kessler's involvement signaled the coalition's intent to crush humanity once and for all. On the bridge of the Vanguard, Captain Marcus Hayes stood with his senior officers, analyzing the incoming data. A holographic display projected the coalition's fleet movements, the sheer number of red markers threatening to overwhelm the tactical map. "They're throwing everything they've got at us," Lieutenant Aria Voss observed, her tone grim. "It's not just about winning this battle. They want to make an example of us." Hayes nodded, his face set in determination. "Then we'll give them something worth remembering." Humanity's fleet, though smaller, had one significant advantage: the battle would take place in a star system filled with volatile gas clouds and unstable asteroids. Hayes had chosen this location deliberately, knowing that the environment would level the playing field. As the coalition fleet entered the system, Grand Admiral Kessler addressed his forces from the bridge of his flagship, the Oblivion. "Today, we end this farce," Kessler declared, his voice booming over the comm channels. "Humanity has dared to defy the coalition, but they are nothing more than an annoyance. Crush them, and let the galaxy see what happens to those who oppose us." The coalition's ships advanced in perfect formation, their weapons glowing ominously. In contrast, humanity's fleet remained dispersed, hiding among the gas clouds and asteroid fields. It was a seemingly disorganized strategy, one that Kessler viewed as desperation. "Signal all units to hold position," Hayes ordered. "Let them come to us." The tension aboard the Vanguard was palpable as the coalition ships drew closer. The crew watched in silence, their hands poised over controls, waiting for Hayes' command. "Now," Hayes said at last. "Engage Phase 1. Hidden mines, carefully placed within the gas clouds, detonated as the coalition ships passed through. Explosions rippled through their formations, tearing apart smaller vessels and forcing the larger ones to break ranks. The once perfect lines of the coalition fleet were thrown into chaos. "Phase 2, Hayes commanded. From the gas clouds, humanity's ships emerged like predators from the mist, targeting the coalition's exposed flanks. Smaller ships darted in and out of the chaos, delivering precision strikes before retreating back into cover. The Vanguard led the charge, its weapons blazing as it carved a path through the enemy. Kessler watched from the oblivion, his expression darkening. "Clever," he muttered. "But cleverness won't save them." He ordered his ships to regroup, deploying advanced drones to flush out humanity's forces from the gas clouds. The drones, equipped with heat-seeking sensors, quickly located several human ships and began coordinating fire. On board the Vanguard, alarms blared as the drones closed in. "They're adapting," Aria said, her voice urgent. Hayes didn't hesitate. "Deploy countermeasures. Send the signal to Strike Group Omega." Strike Group Omega was a squadron of stealth fighters equipped with experimental cloaking technology. As the drones honed in on the human ships, the stealth fighters intercepted them, disabling the drones with EMP pulses before retreating into the shadows. Meanwhile, Aria and her strike team launched a daring assault on one of the coalition's command ships. Flying in a small, heavily armored dropship, they navigated the chaos of the battlefield, dodging enemy fire and weaving through asteroid debris. Their target was the Vindictus, a ship responsible for coordinating the coalition's drone network. Disabling it would blind the enemy and give humanity a critical advantage. As the dropship docked with the Vindictus, Aria's team breached the hull and fought their way toward the command center. The corridors were a maze of glowing panels and armored coalition soldiers, but the strike team moved with precision, clearing each room with ruthless efficiency. They reached the command center just as the coalition officers attempted to initiate a full system override. Aria shot out the control console, sparks flying as the system went offline. "Mission accomplished," she said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her. "Let's move!" Back on the Vanguard, the effect of Aria's mission was immediate. The coalition's drones faltered, their coordinated attacks devolving into confusion. Hayes seized the opportunity. "All units, focus fire on their battleships. Take out their heavy hitters." Humanity's fleet pressed the advantage, targeting the coalition's largest ships with relentless precision. Explosions lit up the battlefield as one by one, the mighty battleships fell. Kessler, watching from the oblivion, clenched his fists. "Enough of this," he growled. "Prepare the superweapon." The Oblivion's most fearsome weapon, a massive particle cannon capable of obliterating entire fleets, began to charge. The air aboard the Vanguard grew tense as the crew detected the weapon's energy buildup. "Time to impact, 2 minutes," a tactical officer reported. Hayes didn't flinch. "We won't give them 2 minutes. Focus all fire on the Oblivion. Take that cannon offline." The Vanguard and its allies turned their weapons on the coalition flagship, unleashing a torrent of firepower. Shields flared and flickered as the Oblivion absorbed the onslaught, its hull scorched but holding firm. "Impact in 60 seconds, the officer warned. As desperation mounted, Aria's team, still aboard the Vindictus, received a new objective. "We need to take out that cannon," Aria said, her voice firm. "Prepare for extraction. We're boarding the Oblivion." The team launched themselves toward the enemy flagship, their dropship dodging through the crossfire. The fate of humanity now rested on their shoulders. Arya Voss and her team breached the hull of the Oblivion, the Coalition's flagship, just as its particle cannon reached the final stages of charging. The airlock hissed open, revealing the sterile, metallic corridors of the massive ship. Coalition soldiers immediately moved to intercept, their gleaming armor reflecting the strobing emergency lights. "Move fast, hit hard," Arya barked, her rifle raised as the team pushed forward. "We've got less than a minute to disable that cannon." The team engaged in fierce close-quarters combat, their precision and resolve cutting through the Coalition's defenses. Each step brought them closer to the weapons control room, the reverberations of the cannon's energy buildup growing stronger with every second. On the bridge of the Vanguard, Captain Hayes monitored the situation, his jaw clenched. "Status on Arya's team?" he demanded. "They've breached the lower decks," the comm officer replied. "But the cannon is nearing full charge. Impact in 45 seconds. Hayes turned to the tactical display. The human fleet was holding the Coalition forces at bay, but their losses were mounting. Every ship fired relentlessly at the Oblivion, but the flagship's shields continued to absorb the punishment. "Keep firing," Hayes ordered. "We have to buy them time." Inside the Oblivion, Arya and her team reached the control room, its massive consoles glowing with alien symbols. Engineers scrambled to secure the area, their panic evident as they saw the human strike team storm in. "Secure the perimeter," Arya commanded, her voice cutting through the chaos. "I need time to shut this thing down." Her tech specialist, Corporal Diaz, immediately moved to the central console, his fingers flying over the unfamiliar interface. "This system's got triple encryption," Diaz muttered. "It's gonna take more than brute force." "We don't have time for finesse," Arya said, tossing him an EMP charge. "Make it work." Diaz nodded, attaching the device to the console. Sparks flew as the charge disrupted the system, the glowing symbols flickering erratically. The cannon's ominous hum began to waver, but the progress bar on the screen showed it was still dangerously close to firing. 30 seconds, the comm officer reported back to Hayes. "Come on, Arya," Hayes muttered under his breath. Coalition reinforcements poured into the control room, forcing Arya's team into a desperate firefight. She crouched behind a console, her rifle barking out precise shots that kept the enemy at bay. "Diaz, status?" she shouted over the din. "It's working, but I need more time." Diaz yelled back, sweat dripping down his face as he worked. The cannon's hum suddenly faltered, its charging sequence stalling. On the Vanguard, cheers erupted as the threat appeared to be neutralized. But it wasn't over yet. On the Oblivion S bridge, Grand Admiral Kessler slammed his fist on the console. "Activate the manual override," he roared. In the control room, an automated voice echoed through the speakers. * manual override initiated. Particle cannon firing in 10 seconds. *. "Damn it!" Diaz cursed, frantically trying to disable the override. Arya's mind raced. She glanced at the reactor core, its exposed housing glowing with volatile energy. "We don't have time for this." "Diaz, rig the charges." Diaz hesitated. "But..." "Do it!" Arya shouted. Diaz quickly placed explosive charges around the reactor core. The team fell back as the countdown continued, Coalition soldiers pressing their attack. Cannon firing in 5, 4. "Charges set." Diaz called out. "Everyone out, now!" Arya ordered. The team sprinted toward their dropship, gunfire chasing them down the corridor. The moment they boarded, Arya hit the detonator. The reactor exploded in a blinding flash, the shockwave tearing through the control room and disabling the cannon just as it prepared to fire. On the Vanguard, the tactical display showed the Oblivion S systems going dark. The crew erupted into cheers, but Hayes remained focused. "Target their engines," he ordered. "Let's make sure they don't come back from this." The human fleet pressed the attack, exploiting the chaos aboard the Oblivion. Coalition ships began retreating, their formation breaking apart as they fled the battlefield. On the Oblivion, Grand Admiral Kessler seethed with rage as his ship shuddered under the relentless barrage. "This isn't over," he growled, retreating to an escape pod. As the Coalition fleet vanished into hyperspace, the human fleet regrouped. The Vanguard led the remaining ships in a triumphant arc around the battlefield, their victory solidified. Back on the bridge, Hayes addressed the crew. "We've done what they said was impossible. We faced their strongest and sent them running. But this isn't just a victory for us, it's a message to the galaxy. Humanity doesn't fear war. We rise to meet it." Arya and her team returned to the Vanguard to a hero's welcome. Exhausted but triumphant, she exchanged a nod with Hayes. "We bought ourselves time," she said. "But they'll come back." "We'll be ready," Hayes replied. Across the galaxy, news of humanity's victory spread like wildfire. Oppressed species and rebel factions saw humanity's defiance as a beacon of hope. The Coalition, once seen as invincible, now faced resistance on all fronts. Humanity had not only survived, they had changed the course of galactic history. For the first time, the stars themselves seemed to whisper a new truth: humanity was not to be underestimated.